Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thanks for taking this time. This is going to be about 30 minutes just so you're prepared for this webinar. You might want to take notes. I'm going to make sure all of the slides are up here, so just to get you ready. In this webinar, we're going to look at a team approach, which is a little different from how most management takes a look at these things. Usually you have executive coaching or other things that deal with you individually. Here we're going to take a team approach to managing projects and look specifically at what happens when you have a problem manager, but you don't want to eliminate that manager. You really want to eliminate the problem, just the problem, not the manager, right? We all know that sometimes firing people works if it's the wrong person, really, but often it's not practical, it's not expedient. We actually are very happy with this person in other areas, and we just want the project to succeed, and we want this individual to succeed as well. So that's what we're going to look at today. Firing people often just doesn't solve the problem, and if you're in the middle of a project, it's going to set it back even worse than it already is. So when you've decided that those are not the options for you, right? Not firing this person, right? We're not going to do that. Then you would be on this webinar where we're going to look at a different approach. I know your time is valuable, so we've made this a simple 5-step process, and I want to get right into the content. But first, I just want to make sure you're in the right place, listening to the right person. This is a picture of me. You can see, hello, I'm a real person. I'm not going to talk about myself here. I'm just going to get into the content. But you can see my website below. You can look me up on LinkedIn or whatever other way you look up in Google if you want to find out about me. That's not what this webinar is going to be about. This webinar is for you. If you are a middle manager or a senior manager, maybe a company owner, you have direct reports who are underperforming, or projects that you know you've funded and you've staffed them properly, but somehow it's just not progressing the way you planned. It's costing you money. It might be jeopardizing your job. Like if you're in a big company, you're not getting promoted the way you want to be because you've got these underperforming projects. Or if you're a company owner, this is costing you a lot of money and you need some solutions. I've been there. I've been in corporate. I've been a mentor. I've run several companies for other people. I've run companies for myself. I'm a founder myself, and I know how it is, right? If you talk to somebody else about it, it's difficult, right? They'll either just say something like, oh, that happens all the time, or so-and-so's a jerk, and I mean, that doesn't help. Or they'll say, well, the studies show that 40 to 80% of projects go over deadline and over budget. That doesn't help you. Or they'll just say, well, everything in the company always runs like that. If you're not willing to put up with the industry averages like this, or our company always has these problems, and you're ready for a new approach, you are in the right place. Now that you know you're in the right place, let me just tell you how this is going to go. So the webinar, it's 5 steps. It's very easy to implement. It's about 30 minutes. Your time is valuable. I'm not going to go into any of that blah blah about why I'm qualified. I'm just going to give you pure content here, and I'm going to give you a free bonus. There's no Q&A here because the Q&A isn't really relevant. Everybody's problem is a little bit different. I mean, obviously there's similarities, but nobody's going to air their problems here on a public webinar. So no Q&A sessions. Instead, I'm giving you the 60-minute free bonus, and it's 60 minutes with me. It's a coaching call or strategy session, whatever you want to call it. And in that session, we will talk specifically about you and your problems, and I will give you tools that are really appropriate for you to implement right now. I'm not a salesperson. I'm an organizational consultant, so it's not a sales call. And my hope is you'll want to work with me, and my hope is you'll get so much value out of this webinar and so much value out of that particular session that you'll want to hire me. And my rates start at $6,800. That's for on-site session. I come to you wherever you are in the country, in the world. We work out the logistics. I know how to use airports. It all works out fine. So it's not one of these like virtual coaching things. I don't believe in that. I think we need to work with human beings. This is all about a human process, and you're about to hear one of the human processes that I like to use in this webinar. And so now you know why I'm doing this, why I'm giving you all this free stuff. If you wanted to work with me, what you would do, oh, by the way, I will give you my sales pitch on the call. At the end of the call, this is my sales pitch, just so you'll be ready, brace yourself. Would you like to work with me? Or can I help you in any other way? That's it. Okay, so now you're ready for when I come on with that hard sell. Would you like to work with me? Okay, you're all set up now. We're going to get into the webinar. What we're going to do here is a 5-step process. I'll just go through it here and then we'll go to each step individually. Step 1, define the problem in solvable terms. Step 2, enroll and support the manager. Step 3, enroll the team and eliminate excuses. Step 4, implement and delegate. Step 5, measure and celebrate weekly. And I'm just going to dive deeper into each one of these. Now, we're talking right here about how to solve a problem with a problem manager, but this process could be applied really to any problem in your organization. So listen up. Step 1 is defining the problem in solvable terms. And that sounds obvious, right? Of course, if I have a problem, I want to define it in solvable terms. But for some reason, when it comes to human beings, like if we don't have a boss we like or our manager is having problems, we tend to use colorful terms for that. I won't go into colorful terms, but you've probably heard these things. You might never say this, of course, in your organization nobody does this, but sometimes people are described as a jerk, a control freak, an egomaniac, or something that I won't mention. And like I said, not in your organization, but you might have heard that some people do this sometimes. Now, none of those definitions really help you very much in defining it in solvable terms. So right here, we're going to sit down and break down the behavior into something that we could look at in solvable terms. I'm just going to take an example here, as you can see on the slide, of somebody who's a control freak, right? You've heard this description of people. As I said, you'd never use it yourself, of course. Not a very nice thing to say, but they're a control freak. Now, if I wanted to resolve this issue with a manager who was keeping very tight control on things, I might break down the behaviors that they're using. So this is how we would break it down. We'd say, okay, this person does not share their work plans. So because they don't share the work plans more than a week ahead, people aren't on the same page. They don't know what the end goal is. They don't know how all the different pieces work. And so this control freak is not sharing the thoughts in their own head, not sharing the plans. So that's one characteristic. Another characteristic that we might say of this control freak is that they are very quick to give criticism and not necessarily the constructive kind. They give negative criticism, maybe it's demoralizing people, it's not actionable, like, oh, this isn't good enough. Well, that doesn't help, right? So that's another control freak behavior that we can address. Another one is maybe they fail to give positive feedback, right? If something's going well, they never say, oh, that's great. They always maybe find fault at things, right? A control freak probably doesn't delegate effectively. So people aren't always doing the things that they're best at, or the control freak, so to speak, is doing things themselves. And that might happen at the outset, or it might happen, like in the next characteristic, that instead of training people when they fail, so if they did delegate, right, let's say somebody made a mistake or didn't do it properly, instead of training or coaching that person, the control freak is like, you know what, forget it. I'll do it myself. Again, you'd never do that, but some people do that, right? And then they get labeled with this label. And finally, somebody who's labeled a control freak, this particular example, is even when other people do get the results, they complain it didn't get done right. It's like, okay, well, they got it done, but it wasn't the right way, okay? So that's pretty clear, right? If you look at this slide, you'll be like, yeah, that describes a control freak. And also when you look at this slide, you think, oh yeah, each one of those things could be measured. Each one of those things could be addressed, right? Control freak is hard to address, but something like doesn't share their work plans, that's easy to address. Hey, maybe all we need is a shared server and some way where everybody else can comment on it and we're done, right? We can create a solution for that problem. You can see that this could be done with any of those other labels. Just break down the behaviors that are causing that label to occur or the lack of productivity. So that's step 1. Step 2. Step 2 is all about enrolling the manager, and it's also about supporting the manager. So before I get into it, one of the most important factors is, listen, if you're listening to this webinar, it's because you decided not to fire this person. And if you decided not to fire this person, you make sure they know that, right? You have their back. all of this process will fall apart if people think that any second they're going to lose their jobs, because nobody's going to put their best foot forward. So you need to tell this person you have their back. So as you go into this process, of course, when you're going to have a meeting with the manager, that's what this step is about, having a meeting with him. So first I'm going to talk about preparing yourself for that meeting. Okay, the slide shows what you're going to do in the meeting, but I'm going to talk about what you do before the meeting. Let's face it, people who are not succeeding, they kind of know it. So this manager probably has some idea that something's going wrong. They might not think they're the problem. For example, in the case of the control freak, usually everybody else is the problem and there's not enough time to do my job, right? So a control freak might, like that was described above, they might describe the problem as not enough time to do my job and everybody else is an idiot. Of course, they wouldn't use that term in your organization, and they certainly wouldn't say it right to your face, but they might be thinking that in their head, right? You've talked to this person about the specific problems, but this meeting is going to be different. And what's different about the meeting is it's a meeting in preparation for step 3, which you know is to enroll the team, right? And when you're going to enroll the team, you're going to have a meeting with the whole team about how to solve the problem. So now, once you're prepared for this meeting, one of the preparations you're going to make is you're going to think about this manager and their strengths and weaknesses. So you're going to want to have for yourself a list of where you think they're strong and where you think they're weak. And you might not use that specifically in this meeting, but you want to at least have it in your mind. What you want to use it most for is to introduce the meeting and say, listen, I know you're really great at all these things. That's why we've promoted you to this management position. And I got your back. And there's still this problem, which we're underproducing, right? We're not meeting the deadlines. I'm getting complaints from the people who work for you. Whatever it is the symptoms that you're having, they know. So you say, that's what this meeting's about, right? Then you say to them, look, let's take a look at your job itself and the job description and the things you have to do. What are the things you're best at? And what are the things you're worst at? What are the things you love? What are the things you hate? Hopefully this is going to match pretty well what you've said, and if there are a few things you need to bring up, that's great. If it's totally way off, that would be unusual. Usually people have a self-awareness. It's totally way off. Hey, give me a call. Let's talk, right? But basically, you're going to end up with the same list, right? Then get clear. Say, listen, I know you're the absolute best coder in the world, for example, if they are a coder. You're the absolute best, line manager in the world, or the absolute best producer in the company. And that's why you got promoted. But your job isn't to produce anymore. Your job is to teach other people. Your job is to coach other people so they can become good producers like you. Not everybody wants that job. Not everybody wants to be the person who teaches others. And if they don't, they're in the wrong job, and then that's a totally different discussion. But once they're online with that, right, I know that's why I got promoted, then you need to talk about, okay, what are we going to have to do in order to get you to stop doing these things yourself, right? Again, this is in the case of the control freak. Each case is different. Then you want to brainstorm with them. You say, okay, well, this is the problem. You're not really good at this task, and you don't like organizing that, and maybe you're not whatever. Let's start thinking about what are some strategies that we can address the problem. Maybe so-and-so on your team is better at that and you can work with him, or we can delegate that to him, like that, or her. And then finally you prepare for the team meeting, right? And you say, listen, this is great, this list of stuff that we came up with. Let's sit down with the team and we're going to tell them all about this, or hear from their input all about this, and we're going to make sure that we get this all resolved, not just you and me alone. We're going to have your team members do it. Now, they might be a little concerned at this point, like, what do you mean? You're going to tell my problems to my team? Just, say, look, it's a team problem. I want you to have support, and we're going to have it be within the group, and that's just how it's going to work, because until now, nothing we worked at helped. If you have any problems, getting ready for this meeting or anything like that, either take the consultation with me or go to your HR department. Do not have an HR person in this meeting. That's threatening and doesn't give the right message, right? You want this to be about improving your communication with your employees. So it's perfectly great to go and consult with HR and get ready, or consult with me and get ready for the meeting, but don't have a third person in this meeting, right? Just make it really comfortable and about communication. So at the end of this meeting, you'll be ready to go to step 3. Step 3 is enrolling the team and eliminating excuses. I know you're already excited about eliminating excuses because they don't help. And step 3 has 2 parts as well, also the preparation and the actual meeting. And here's the preparation slide. But first I'm going to talk to you about why this doesn't just naturally happen. In fact, I don't know why, but almost everywhere I go, this is the number one thing that people come up against. For some reason, there's a natural reluctance for people who are managers to bring in people who are of lower ranks, so to speak. I'm not really sure why that is. It's in our, I don't think it's our training. I think it's some genetic throwback, like we don't want to look stupid to our children, or, the tribal leaders who are like, oh, this is how you worship the sun god, didn't want people to know that they actually have no idea and they made it all up. So you have to not consult with the lower ranks or something. Whatever the reason is, pretty much everywhere I go, there's this reluctance. I mean, even when I did a simulation, when I did my MBA, and they said, oh, you're a manager, you're an employee, all of a sudden people acted in this weird way, even though it was just, hey, we're just acting. I actually am a manager. You could ask my advice. So you may experience some natural reluctance at this point. You might be like, what do you mean? I'm going to air my dirty laundry for the whole team to see? Let me comfort you. The team knows about the dirty laundry. Half of them already were in your office complaining about this manager. And by the way, the same is with your whole life, right? Most of us are trying to hide our dirty secrets. Most of us are trying to hide unpleasant character flaws about ourselves. And, everybody knows our unpleasant character flaws. They live with us, right? So don't worry about involving the team because they know your secret. But you do want to prepare, right? You want to prepare. I probably don't need to tell you that. If you're a manager at your level, you know that you don't walk into a meeting blind. You know what most of the people are already going to think. And the way you do that is with some informal, maybe one-on-one discussions, 15-minute discussions, 20-minute discussions. If it needs to be, it'll be longer than that, but probably you just want to make sure they're on board and say, look, we're going to be discussing this in this meeting, and I want you to know I'm completely behind your manager, and we're going to resolve these issues as a team. So make sure that you have a couple of people on board with you that are going to be backing this process. And secondly, you want to look at the whole environment, right? There might be some issues of gender bias, racial bias. Somebody might need some sensitivity training or anything else that's going on. If there's any issues like that, first of all, you should address them, right? You should be addressing them with upper management, or you should look at how to address them appropriately. If those are causing resentment, they don't have to stop you from having this meeting. But you need to make sure that they're being addressed, and also that you know what they are, so that you don't come into this meeting and end up being surprised by, hey, these people know those people are getting paid more or something like that. You want to be ready. So know all that coming into the meeting, because those can seriously affect teamwork, right? We're working on, again, a team problem. Maybe it really isn't the manager. Maybe it's some underlying issues like that. So you want to know what they are and not be caught by surprise. So that's preparation for the meeting, and now we'll talk about the meeting itself. At the start of this meeting, you need to make sure, and I can't emphasize this enough, although many of you probably think I've already emphasized this enough, it needs to be clear that this manager has your backing, that you support them, that they're the right person, that there's some issues that we're going to resolve as a team, but this is not a complaint festival for the manager. This is the eliminate excuses part. It doesn't matter whose fault anything is. All that matters is getting the project back on track. You could blame the manager, you can blame whatever you want, but if the company loses money and people lose their jobs, those excuses, they're not going to mean anything, right? You can't go to the bank with your excuses. All you can go to the bank with is, we got this job done and we're amazing. It's the job of everyone on the team to achieve the team goals. And it's the job of everyone on the team to make the manager a hero. So when you frame it for people that way, they can get excited, right? Hey, oh, wait a sec, it's my job to make my manager a hero. People get promoted, maybe the manager will get promoted, maybe one of them will get his job. There's all kinds of benefits that could happen if your manager is a hero. Maybe everybody gets a bonus, who knows, right? But that's the job of the team. And once you've enrolled them in that basic stuff, right? This is your manager, we're going to make him a hero or her a hero, heroine. You'll go now through a similar process to the one you went with the manager. You want to get the team input. So the team input should be, first of all, again, the same thing. Where does the manager shine? Where are they great? And where should they be spending most of their time? Now, again, it might be that they shine at, this particular work and they shouldn't be spending more of their time there. But again, we want to emphasize, okay, this is what they're great at. Okay, maybe they're really great at the production part and they need to spend their time teaching people how to produce rather than producing themselves. Secondly, where the manager doesn't shine, where they should be delegating things. I've been in organizations where, for example, we had a manager who was checking prices on the shipping companies. Like, they were just wasting their time on that. That could easily have been done by somebody else. And other things, if they're not good at planning or they're not good at whatever it is, let's take a look. These are the things that need to be done on the team, need to be done by the manager, that the manager is not really shining, or they really should already be delegated to other people. Once you've looked at the manager specifically, you want to look at the project. We're talking about an underperforming project, right? An underperforming project means there's all kinds of things that aren't happening, not just the manager, right? So what's going on with the communication? When I talk about communication, it's not just talking communication. It could be some shared message boards. It could be a shared project plan. It could be, oh my goodness, every single email CCs every single person on the team and it's driving us crazy. So there might be too much communication. There might be too little communication. There might be the wrong kind of communication, and there might not be often enough or too often, right? So if you have, let's say, a share a project in a shared drive and everybody updates what they've done, this is a kind of communication that's very offline kind of communication, but is very effective for teams, right? It's better than just sending emails or messages. So you need to look at what's appropriate, and the team itself should look at that. Like, given what we're trying to create here, what communications are right? How often? Should they be face-to-face? Should they be offline? Whatever it is, what do we need to create in order to accomplish the job, right? This is specific to the job and the project that's gotten off track. And just as a hint, if this is a project that's gone off track, you may be tracking things not often enough, right? Like, oh, we just check in every 2 weeks, but the project keeps falling more and more behind. Maybe we need to check every 2 days now until we get back on track. Next, you want to take a look at what behaviors are appropriate for the team culture. So for example, if positive feedback is something that's missing and people don't feel appreciated, you can address that and measure it, right? How often should there be positive feedback? Who should be doing that? Should that be done in a one-on-one meeting? How do we get that to be part of our team culture? And then also with team culture, if people don't feel cared about by one another, the team is always going to underperform. If they're not having fun, if they don't feel like they care about each other, this is a cultural issue, and you need to be delicate, because in some cultures, it's inappropriate, for example, to walk into someone's office and ask about business before you asked how they are and how their children are. In other cultures, that's taboo, right? You're not allowed to ask about people's children or whatever. So have the team as a team decide what will work for them and how they want that to look, so that they feel comfortable about how they approach one another for their team culture. The next area you want to look at is where the team members, including the manager, will look for training to improve their skills. So the manager might have some things that they need to delegate. For example, they need to delegate or can delegate some of the coaching stuff. They might need or be able to delegate some of the planning stuff. Some stuff isn't appropriate for them to delegate. The manager is going to be the person who's going to give feedback. So if they're going to be the person giving feedback, maybe they need some sensitivity training, or they need some coaching on how do you talk to people, how do you give feedback, whatever it is that they need training on, or maybe they do need training on planning and project management. So what are the areas which really shouldn't be delegated and should have training? And maybe there's even somebody on the team who's an expert at those things that can train them. Maybe it's not about getting an outside trainer, right? So where does the manager need more training and how they could get that? And finally, we talk about the structures. So I touched on that before, right? If you decide we need more positive feedback, so there might be a form that the manager needs to fill out until they get really good at it, saying, what was great about this job? What did so-and-so do well this week? And it might be a weekly process where they fill out the form, and then they put the form in a drawer and pretend that they're just spontaneously telling that to the employee, right? That's just an example of a structure for a behavior, right? And there might be team ways of doing this. So for example, if one of the issues is that someone raises their voice or that everybody starts raising their voice in a meeting, you might agree, okay, you know what, we're going to make a code word. The code word is popcorn. It could be some ridiculous word. So instead of people in a meeting saying, wait, 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 you're shouting, they would yell popcorn. And then when they say popcorn, everybody knows to moderate their voices, right? So create structures. They can be funny structures. They can be serious structures, really depending on what you're trying to create, and make them something that can be implemented specifically. You may have some reluctance by some team members to take on more responsibility, like, that's not my job, that's not what I came here to do. So you may have to enroll them at a higher level. You may look at, how do we get them excited about being responsible? Obviously, if you've come in knowing about those root issues that I talked about before, if somebody's not being compensated properly, then those issues are there before you come into the meeting and you can handle them. So that's why I said that before, because if people are like, oh, well, it's not my job to support this manager, you could already know if there's some background for that issue and you can have addressed that beforehand. Generally speaking, people love to care about each other. People love to help. People love to feel like they're appreciated and respected, because when you bring the team in, you're honoring these human beings. You're honoring these people as part of your organization, as knowledgeable, as people who can contribute. And generally speaking, you won't get much reluctance unless there are underlying issues. So generally speaking, people will be excited. Hey, we're going to make the manager a hero or heroine. So we're at step 4. Step 4 and 5 are more standard management procedures. So we're going to go through them a little faster. You're pretty familiar with most of these things. You really want to make sure to do them, though. So many companies, and I know you've seen this, maybe not at your company, but if you've been around for a while, oh, we're going to go to this offsite, or we're going to bring in this consultant, or we're going to have this meeting about the problem, and then there isn't any follow-up, right? You don't want that. You don't want that. Your projects are going to fail. You're going to lose face, and people aren't going to trust you if you just have this meeting about the problem and then nothing really happens. And on the one hand, you want to make sure the team is handling this themselves, right? It's all about delegating to the team. It's about bringing people's responsibility up. So they're going to have these ongoing implementation and delegation issues that they have to handle, and you want to just monitor that. So first of all, it's not about you coming in and managing more stuff. It's about you having more time and the team managing themselves. In the meeting that you just had, maybe you've created the structures that I talked about, right? Maybe you've created, okay, we're going to have a project plan and these 3 people are responsible for it and they're going to create it online by this date. Or we're going to have a 15-minute acknowledgement session where everybody's going to get positive feedback in a group, individually, whatever you decide on a weekly basis. So you may have decided on all that in the meeting, or you may have a series of follow-on meetings or breakout sessions, depending on the size of the team, to create those structures. And then you're going to have specific individuals who are responsible for implementing those different structures. So you want to have a follow-up meeting within a few days, definitely within a week, and then follow-up meetings going on after that to make sure that you've implemented all of the things you decided upon. And also, as we mentioned, you don't want to just have measures for the team performance and the dry things. You probably had them already, right? Are we making our milestones? You also want to have the structures for the team culture things that you discussed, right? Too much criticism. You want to make sure that's out there. More sharing of information. You want to make sure you're measuring that. Anything that you decided that are more soft issues, you also have to measure. Otherwise, the changes aren't going to be in your company. They're not going to become part of the company culture. At the beginning, you might have to manage this a little more tightly. But ultimately, this is about the team taking responsibility. This is not about extra work for you. It's definitely not about extra work for this problem manager. It's about having the team take on the responsibility so that they become self-monitoring. You would expect to continue to get some kind of reporting from them so that you can monitor them and it's not too informal. But ultimately, this is about the team monitoring themselves. Finally, we get to measure and celebrate. And this is something you're familiar with, right? You measure every week and you congratulate people on doing a good job. And you want to celebrate, you want to reward people, you want people to be recognized. keep in mind that recognition is the most effective reward. And also keep in mind that it has to be fun. That's why I call this celebrate rather than rewarding people. When people are celebrating, and it can be super simple, right? You can just give high fives all around. You can send people a text that they're doing a great job. The simplest things can be very meaningful for people. And the studies have been very clear that monetary rewards are not as appreciated as recognizing people. Recognizing people for their accomplishments is one of the biggest motivators for people when it comes to changing their behaviors or rewarding their behaviors. People want to be recognized. Some people want to be recognized in public, so at the weekly meeting you can say, I noticed that so-and-so did this, or some people just don't want to be recognized in public, but it means a lot to them if you stop by their office. So be personal about it. Make sure people feel that their accomplishments are being celebrated, that their achievements are being recognized. And you can allow the team to make up its own reward. So you can say, listen, if we make this goal, I'm going to post a video of myself on YouTube, dancing around the Macarena. Whatever would just be funny and put a smile on people's faces and the team thinks is a great reward. Make sure they monitor themselves as much as possible and that you're passing that on. Make it really fun by allowing them to say what would be fun for them. I mean, would it be fun for us to go out for a picnic? Would it be fun for us to, whatever it is, just make sure that what you're measuring is what you wanted to achieve and that the rewards or bonuses are things that people on the team want and like. So just a quick review, and then I'll tell you how to get the free bonus by clicking below. So to review, step 1, define the problem in solvable terms. Step 2, enroll and support the manager. Step 3, enroll the team and eliminate excuses. Step 4, implement and delegate. Step 5, measure and celebrate weekly. I hope the webinar was valuable. The steps can help you with your team. Definitely shoot me an email if there's any questions or if you just want to tell me how wonderful this was or any obstacles that you meet. And of course, I'm going to offer you this free bonus. So also if there are any obstacles or if you want to prepare yourself for this a little better or ask me any questions, that's what the free bonus is all about. Or if you are totally clear and you just want to get your free bonus because you got some other questions for me, perfect. Definitely click below and get that. How that works is you click below, you pick a time, it'll put you into a scheduler, right? It's going to take you off the site and you'll go to a scheduler, you'll pick a time that works for you. Obviously those times all work for me, and you'll fill in a little form. That form will give me some information so that I can serve you better. Obviously, if you don't put in your email address or your phone number or Skype, I won't be able to have the call with you. I'm happy to do Skype, like video call, if you want to do it face-to-face, sort of. And I'm happy to do just a voice call by phone. Just let me know your number or your Skype number and we will have this call. The information, I value your time. So the information that you put in there is going to help me be ready for the call. If you put your company name or website, you tell me specifically about the problem, whatever you tell me about yourself, your background, whatever you tell me in that space, that'll give me the ability to serve you better on the call. I do my research, I do my homework, I come on the call prepared to help you so that the 60 minutes is really there to serve whatever the issue is you're having right now, a management issue, a personal issue with somebody on the team, just the team isn't gelling, whatever it is that's going on for you, or questions and answers about this webinar, the 60 minutes is for you. It's not a sales call. And also you should know when you put in your email, I'm not putting you in a sales funnel. I may have some content that you might want, some little videos or articles or things that I'll refer to you from time to time, very occasional. You will not be getting pummeled with all kinds of sales stuff trying to sell my product. I don't even have a product, right? I do consulting. You're welcome to contact me about it, but you won't be, sold anything at all. Just these kinds of content videos like the one you just saw. So click below. Fill it out. Let's have 60 minutes together where I can really give you some tools that you can bring right back into your company and have better results now. So click below, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you.